have a '04 Ford Expedition, and we have a problem in that car doesn't start. And I'm going to verify that right now. Alright, so we're going to see if it starts. So we have a fuel gauge, and what we did was we hooked it up right to the Schrader valve right here on the fuel rail. You just screw it on. Okay, very easy to do. And then I'm going to turn the key on. The key is now turned on, and if I go back out to the fuel gauge, okay, zero pressure with the key on. It should have at least 35 psi and it will hold it for at least 1 minute. I didn't get any pressure at all. I'm going to power up our fuel pump with the power probe. The fuses and the relay are much too hard on this Expedition to access, so we're going to use the inertia switch and power it up right. My inertia switch is good because the button is not popped, and I can press it and it is reset. So we're going to check power at the wiring harness. I'm going to touch the wire going down the fuel pump. I should see a ground, and I do. So I apply power, and I should hear the fuel pump, and I don't. Okay, if a fuel pump was good, I would hear a humming sound when I apply power, and it doesn't. So this is just a test port that I created for students to practice testing. The fuel pump's definitely frozen on this. Okay, we have a Ford Expedition here. It's not running because our fuel pump went bad. So we're going to change the fuel pump, and we're also going to talk about the fuel filter. So we have the filler neck up at the top up here. We follow it down, it goes down to our fuel tank right here. The fuel filter will be somewhere located on the fuel pump, or it will be along the frame, somewhere along the frame going up towards the front of the motor. This particular filter is one of the easiest I've ever seen. You just push up these two little tabs right here, and then this cover pops off, and then you have two lines going into it, one line coming out. So they gave you these little buttons. You just push these little buttons. Now keep in mind, this is filled with fuel, so the fuel will go down your arm if you keep your arm up too high. So I'm going to just push that button and then give it a little pull. Let's see. Okay, so looking at it more closely, it's the O-ring's really dry. That's why it's hard. But there's a button on both sides, so I need to push both buttons on this, and then I can pull this off, and then my fuel. And I don't want to have any sparks. Be aware of this, okay? It probably is a good idea because of the fuel to touch it in a drain pan. All right. Okay, so again, grab both buttons, squeeze them really hard. These O-rings were really tight, so it was hard for me to get these off. So I kind of loosened them up a little bit, and then you go ahead and drain this off. Okay. All fuel filters have a arrow, a direction. So the arrow faces towards the motor. Okay. And then to check this fuel filter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug one in and I'm going to blow on it. And I could tell this has never been changed because it's really hard to blow through. It should not be hard at all to blow the air through this. So this filter needs to be changed. Alright, so we already know we got to change our fuel filter, but I want to just show you that this car had the little blue buttons to push to take the fuel lines off, but sometimes you need to use like a fuel line clip, and you got to put those clips on and slide those into the fuel line, and then that will release the line. So these are other types of clips. Okay, they just go like this, and then you push it into the line, and then that expands the clip, and then you can pull the line off. This one did not need it. So there's all kinds of different ones. You know, these are cheaper sets, more expensive sets that come with any type of fuel line clip that you need. We still might need these when we do the fuel pump. These ones are real interesting. These actually are used for Ford. These are fuel. Green and yellow are fuel, and blue, red, white, and black are for air conditioning. So a lot of Ford cars, you'll have to use these for the fuel lines, these for the air conditioning lines. Where your fuel comes into your fuel tank. So first off, I put a socket up here. It's just a hose clamp. I don't like that the hose clamp's facing the wrong direction. Made sure I got a socket that fit it properly. Put that on my 1/4-inch ratchet. I'm going to make sure I'm going the right way first with the ratchet. And then hopefully there's enough room to swing this. Yep, it's working. And then hopefully I could, when I go back together, I'm not going to have it face this way. I'm going to have it face down towards me where I could actually spin this ratchet properly. So, alright, so now I got this clamp free. I could actually spin this around where it's going to be a lot easier to take it off. So you put the nut driver on there, and then I can put this on, and now it's almost so much easier to loosen that clamp. Okay, this filter, this pump's never been changed. Now I gotta pop the hose off, so I'm gonna get a pry bar. I'm gonna stick that right underneath, and I'm gonna just slightly lift that hose up. If I can't get it off all the way, no problem. We'll take it off once when we start to drop the tank. But I want to at least get that seal broken on all the sides, so when we drop the tank, it's not going to be too hard to take off. The fuel tank has a little raised section right here to allow for the sway bar in the rear, so I'm going to drop the sway bar down. So sometimes automotive is about getting access. So if I just lower this, I'm not going to take it off the suspension. I'm going to just disconnect it from the frame. And that will give us more ability to have more, so we don't have an obstruction. It is possible that we might have to remove the dry shaft. Okay, so the dry shaft goes right along this fuel tank. If I don't have to take it off, I won't. So we'll see how it goes. But if it's fighting me, it's just 4 bolts to take off the dry shaft. Always support your fuel tank with some pieces of wood. So it's going to take 2 people to lower this, but I'm going to use wood to kind of help us balance it. So I'm going to just go up till I hold it in place. And now we can go ahead and remove these straps. Okay, and keep in mind I have not done all the lines going to this. So we're going to lower the tank down a little bit and then disconnect all the wiring and lines. So, alright, so the bolts over here. Here we go. There's one strap for the fuel tank. There's the other strap for the fuel tank. I will caution you, never do this with a full tank. If you have a full tank of gas, you need to siphon the fuel out of the tank, because if you have 20-gallon tank like this is, that's 8 pounds to a gallon. So that's 160 pounds. You don't want to be messing with that much weight. In order to remove these straps, you have to twist them. So this one I can remove. Okay, I'll put that over here. But this one right here, the dry shaft's in the way, and I can't twist it. And then when I lower the tank, it's going to bend this, and you don't want to bend these. So most people would end up like forcing this out. Dry shafts are easy, so I need to shift it into neutral. So I'm going to go up here to the transmission with a screwdriver. This is your shift linkage coming down to your shift lever. I'm just going to pop that off. So when you move your shifter or something inside the car, that moves this in and out. And then I'm just going to shift the transmission into neutral. So that's park. So if I go to the dry shaft, I can't turn it right now. Park. Reverse, neutral, and now I can turn my dry shaft and we can remove our bolt. So too many people fight this, and it's like, why? Just take it off. Now I will say you should mark your dry shaft to the pinion flange. This is called the pinion flange on the differential. So that way you don't throw things out of balance. And we have a mark already, so that's good. One more bolt. Okay, and then don't hit stop yet. Watch your head because you're going to have fluid come out of the transmission. I need to use the screwdriver to pop this off a little bit. So I had to use a pry bar because it was rusted on there, and I had to pop this dry shaft off. So now when I pull this out, I'm going to grab my catch can because I'm going to lose. So I'll put the catch can underneath there. If you want, you can move it out of the side, but I've had surgery on my neck for hitting my head on things, so I tend to want to remove anything that I'm going to hit my head on. Okay, now I should be able to lower this after I move the strap. See, I don't have to bend the strap anymore, and now I can lower this down, and it's a balancing job. So you just don't go crazy with this. You go a little bit at a time. And I have some lines back here, so I need to squeeze these lines and take these lines off. So it's just like the fuel lines, 2 buttons. The seals are really dry on this, so it might take a little bit of work. There's one. And the other one's right here, 2 buttons. There we go. So those are those lines. We probably have fuel pump, electrical cord somewhere over here. Take these, and I'm going to disconnect them right here. Okay, so I got this one loose, and what I needed to do was I needed to pop it out of this little holding clip right here. Once when I did that, I was able to twist it and squeeze the 2 green clips. This one's really interesting. Pop this little clip off right here. That moves it out of the way, and then you're going to have to squeeze it. Let's see, should be able to squeeze it. That's the way you do it after you break that clip free, and then it should come through. You can see it right in the side here. And I need to go up a little more on both sides. Maybe stick my screwdriver in the top. Oh, there we go. So you can see, this clip. You pull this button down, and then you're able to pop this clip up here, freeing it off of this little ledge. So almost all fuel lines have a ridge right here, and that's the ticket, is you need to get that ridge clear so you could go ahead and get it removed. Here's the fuel line clip. I have to come on the opposite side from where the camera's at. There's a little tang right here, and you just push that little tang, and then you should be able to separate it. It's going to be a 2-hand job, and sometimes you got to squeeze it together to get it apart. Now we're starting to come down. The last thing is back at the filler neck tube. I need to take this off. Okay. All right, so I gotta be ready. If this tank starts to go, I am not going to try to catch it. Okay, and here we go. It's going off, and I gotta be prepared to hold this fuel tank on this end. And remember, when this is off, if this end lowers, all the fuel that's in the car is going to go onto me. Okay, so I got to be aware of that. Okay, so I don't want to over tip this towards me. Okay, so now it's a balancing job. Probably a 2-person job, because I know I have a half a tank of fuel in here. You can see the whole fuel tank is balancing on this. So we're going to stop filming, and we're going to take this down. Ready? Yep. Okay, so you don't want to just go for it when you're lowering. We noticed something was hanging, and it's this breather tube going back to our charcoal canister. So I'm going to put the nut driver on here, and I'm going to loosen this hose clamp. It's kind of a bad design because you don't really see this until you start to lower the car. So I'm going to unscrew that. Alright, so here's where our fuel pump is on the tank. Okay, so before I take it off, I'm going to go ahead and blow all the dirt away so no dirt goes inside. So, I don't need to blow it hard. You don't want any dirt to contaminate the fuel system. We have two more fuel lines that I need to pop off, which is where we need the fuel clip or the screwdriver. These are the two fuel lines that go down to the fuel filter. So again, you just pop these little clips up right here like that, and then you just need to push these down. There we go, and there we go. So that one's loose, and let's do this one. There we go. You need to push these down. And then that should come off. So here's our two fuel lines going down to our fuel filter. We already have that taken off, so now we need to just turn this whole cap. You want to give me a hammer? Alright, so I want to try to find the strongest section of this tab, and I'm just going to hit it counterclockwise. There it goes. And again, these seals, they're old, so they're dry, and so it makes it a little harder. Plus all the dirt that's accumulated over time. Turn it by hand, and I can. Perfect. Okay, it's really important we pay attention to the direction of the fuel lines. A lot of times when I take this off, there'll be a little slot for it to lock into place, but you need to always be aware of direction when you do this. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean by the slot. So here's our fuel pump. Takes a little bit of fishing to get it out because there's all kinds of lines and stuff. This is a fuel pressure regulator. This used to be on top of the engine. Now they put the fuel pressure regulator right in the fuel tank, because all it does is when you have too much pressure, it just lets it go back in the tank. Here's that little slot I was talking about right here. So that locks this into position properly, and you'll see right here is the tab that goes into the slot. Okay, so you got to get that into place. There's a filter on here. It looks like this filter was starting to clog anyways. And then this is your fuel level sensor right here. So your fuel pump includes a fuel pressure regulator. Your fuel pump itself is right inside here. This is your fuel pump, and then this is your fuel level sensor right here. This whole thing would be called the fuel tank sending unit, is what you would call it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start draining this fuel tank because it's much too heavy. This is a suction pump. You push this little valve down, and then you just sucked it. And I'm going to take off probably 2/3 of this fuel and put this into a cherry can because I don't want to lift this weight. And you can see it works really efficient. It's already sucked out about a quart. See how long it takes to do this. And what's nice, it's working off a vacuum, so there's no chance of spark. And it's going to make our job a lot easier going back in. So we took the old fuel pump, and we the fuel pump itself is this blue housing inside here, and we followed the wires up and we jumped these two to a battery, and it was seized. So we know it's the fuel pump that was old and finally wore out. So it comes with a new float, so you just put this inside here, and it snaps into place, and that's for your fuel level. Okay, so that's good. It also comes with a new O-ring. So let's go ahead and put this in. I'll put that O-ring right inside here. If the O-ring fights me, then what I'm going to do is use the old O-ring, but we'll see if it does. The problem with the old O-rings is a lot of times they stretch and or deform after you take them out. I'm going to slide this in here. Okay, we got all that fuel out to make this lighter. Okay, get my ring ready. Okay, and there's that little tang that we got to be aware of. So that tang's right here. Here's the slot. So I'm going to push this down and make sure that seals onto the O-ring properly. And right there. Got to keep pressure on it. You want to be very careful of this not cross-threading these. They could split, crack. There we go. And they do fit snug, so now I gotta find that slot again. Right there. Alright. Time for a hammer and screwdriver. Okay, here we go. We're good.
Go.
Okay, now let's put our fuel lines on. Make sure they click on all the way past the little ridge. So here's the ridge. We've got to be past that ridge. We're going to click it and click it. Okay, and then snap the safety feature in. So those are ready. This goes down to where our fuel filter's at. And we're ready to lift this back on the jack right here and jack it up. Get that onto the jack. I don't know if we gotta go that way. Okay. And we're gonna just jack this up. Tank up. I hooked up the one hose. We couldn't film that for the vapors. Now I'm gonna hook up my fuel pump electrical connector right here. It's just a simple connector that clips together. Right here. You should hear it click or feel it click. I felt it click. That's good. Okay, we're ready to put our fuel filter in. So I'm going to plug that in right here. So this one goes in right here. Click. And then click. And you got to hear that click. That's really important. Okay, again. Good. Okay, and we'll put the cover on once we get it up further. All right, so this is where your fuel comes into the back of the fuel tank. So I'm gonna get that on all the way, and then I'm gonna get my nut driver, and I'm gonna tighten this hose clamp right here. Okay, remember we moved the hose clamp so I could do it this way. So now slide it down a little more so it gets a better grip. There we go. Now I'm going to tighten this up, and then we'll go hook up some more hoses.
Let's show it.
Okay, so these are for the fuel vapors of the fuel tank. So make sure they click on there. There we go. There's one. And again, I'm fighting a little bit because these hoses and the lines are dry, kind of out here. So that yellow seals in there is all dry. So this is when a little spit works good because it gets it where it'll slide on better, and it'll be all the difference in the world with getting this on. Alright, all the lines are hooked up, all the electrical is hooked up. I just clicked in that one where I put the little bit of spit on the O-ring. That made the difference of a click in. We're ready to jack this up now all the way. So I'm going to jack this up all the way. Then I'm going to take my clamps here, straps, and gonna put these inside. Oh, I need to lower it down a little bit so I get that in there. There we go. Put that one there. Over there. Put this one here. And we're ready to bolt this thing up. So, book in, get that bolt in place, get it lined up, start it a few turns, get my gun going in the right direction. And now I need to increase my gun strength. Okay, for the second strap, here we go. I had to loosen up the jack and slide this a little bit. Okay, last two lines we have are for the actual fuel line going up to the engine, which is right here. Okay, push that down, click it, and move that in. And then this one, we're going to slide this in. This is one where a little bit of spit works good. Slide it on better. Okay, and you want to hear it click. There we go, and we're good. Okay, here we go. We want to put the drive shaft in now since the fuel tank is done. Slide that onto the extension housing of the transmission. There we go. We're going to line up the markings on the drive shafts with where they were before. So I'm going to turn it. Slide that on. Then I have my bolts ready. I'm going to start all these by hand first, rotating them around. Got my gun, 12 millimeter, so 12 point is 12 millimeter swivel socket, and it's impact with a 1/2 inch to 3/8 drive adapter. That's the combination you use. Make sure we're going the right way. Okay, last one on the drive shaft. Good. Now we're going to go back here. We're going to shift this into neutral, or park, I mean. So I'm going to put it in the park. That drive shaft locks. Then I can push my shift linkage back on right here. So now the transmission is connected to your shifter and it's in park. The very last thing we have that we disconnected was our sway bar link. So I'm going to put that sway bar link up right here. And you're going to probably have to move the bushings a little bit to get these lined up. Our bolts all lined for the sway bar link, or sway bar, so now let's tighten it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're ready to go down. So I'm going to raise it up, hold my lock. And this Expedition now should run. We've changed the fuel filter. We put that cover on the fuel filter, and then we put the fuel pump in too. So all the lines are hooked up. There's enough gas in it to start it, so we're good. Now for the moment of truth. One of the things you need to keep in mind is all the fuel lines are empty. And because they're all empty, you got to cycle this key to fill that up. So I'm going to turn the key on, and I'm going to turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. And if you bring the camera back to the filler neck, you should hear a whistle sound when I turn it on. There it is. I'll do it again. Okay, for the moment of truth. We're good. It wasn't running before. And the other good sign is before I changed the fuel pump, I checked my fuel pressure. No matter how many times I cranked the car, it never went above 0. Now I have almost 55 pounds of pressure on this. We're good. This is a quick recap of diagnosing the fuel pump on the 2000 Ford Expedition. It had a 4.6 liter. I'm using ALLDATA, and we went over to the search bar on the far right here. I just typed in fuel pump, and then you get this menu. I want to focus on fuel pump specifically. The testing and inspections down here. Ford is notorious to have a fuel pump relay problem with this vehicle.
I verified by doing the test that I talk about that it was not the relay. So the first thing I did was I hooked up a fuel pressure gauge, and I looked to see what the fuel system specification was. And it, with the key on and the engine off, I should have had 50 psi right here. Okay, so where when I did the test, I had 0 psi. So now I know I'm not getting fuel. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is I need to focus on diagrams and figure out where is the fuel pump getting the power from. So here's all the wiring diagrams for the power train control system. I want to go straight to the fuel pump. I'm going to zoom this open. Okay, so the fuse central junction box is not easily accessible on this vehicle. It's up in the right kick panel where your feet are in the passenger side and front seat. Ford is notorious to have the fuel pump relay, but I know if the fuel pump and the fuse is good if I find that I have power going to my inertia switch right here. The inertia switch is pretty easily accessible. So I unplugged the dark green yellow wire from and the red or pink black wire from the inertia switch, and I checked for power here, and I had power. So the next thing I did was I applied power to the pink black wire using the power probe, which should power up the fuel pump, provided that the fuel pump is good. And I did not get, by applying power right here with using power probe, I did not get the fuel pump to make any noise. It's usually a hum or a whine. I did not hear that. So that's when I diagnosed that it needed a fuel pump. Could it have been a wire? Yes. So when I pulled the fuel pump out, I checked it on the bench, and sure enough, it was fried. So that was my diagnostic route that I took.